time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand with your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
And welcome back to another round of Brandy.
Yes.
We're here and we're talking about surprise and delight when it comes to your brand and marketing.
And we're talking about like enjoyable surprises. You know what I mean? We're not talking about like there's people that get surprised by stuff that they weren't expecting. All of a sudden you get
a bill.
Your electric bill's double the amount, or you get a bill from the doctor that you weren't expecting, or something that just But we're talking about like everybody loves little surprises. Have you ever had a surprise party?
I've had one or two in my life probably.
Yeah, I've had one. When I turned 40, and those are great surprises. Or you run into some surprise you and shows up. Like we see that all the time, like in social media on reels and stuff, of just people like enjoying the moment of surprise and delight, and enjoying seeing people be surprised and delighted. Like all those reels. Like sometimes when you see like a military guy, surprise his family or his wife, and it's endearing and it's cool to see people. So we enjoy as human beings, we enjoy enjoyable surprises. We delight in them, and brands that can kind of lean into that a little bit they're tapping into a special vein to really connect with the audience. I think the
true power of it in it resonating with someone is always when the expectation is set at a certain level. As a consumer, you always have an expectation of, okay, you're getting your oil change or you're getting this entree or whatever it could be. There's always an expectation that we're placing on it based off of past experiences or assumptions about something. And then when a brand is able to go beyond that, then that surprise is a good surprise, right? Anything else is a deficit of that, where it's like a negative of that expectation not being met. But when that expectation is met and exceeded, then that is a huge surprise, right? Or it's something that's completely out of left field where you're adding value to something that actually does connect with that person or your buyer. And, going back to what kind of brought this to mind for an episode was another author. His name's Matt Johnson. He talks about neuroscience and marketing and really cool stuff on that front. He wrote a great book as well, but he talked about serendipity. And so Scott and I were talking about it, and he did an interesting TEDx talk about it. We're talking about serendipity and how that does relate to surprise and delight, and kind of also what Walt Disney was a huge component of with these magical moments and kind of creating these moments of surprise and delight. But serendipity, being on one level of that, but also on a much more kind of functional level of surprising your audience and delighting them with that value add, or like what Walt Disney would say was plussing the experience. How do you add more value and just create more?
Yeah, and I would even say, like, for instance, hypothetical. Let's say you have an online store and you sell cosmetics, and someone orders a cosmetic. Now you could on the website say, "Hey, order $30 or more and get this set of testers, right, of some other products, right?" And you could do that, and that's value. But how much more power is it if you don't tell the customer and they get their shipment, and then all of a sudden there's a little baggie that's just saying, "Hey, an extra way to bless you," or "Here's some testers on us. Maybe you'll like something," and include that, and they're not expecting it. So when they get their package, they're only expecting whatever it is, that one thing that they purchased, or a couple things they purchased, and there's other things in there that they may have a need for, they may not. You could have told them ahead of time, and that would have been great, right? That's added value, right? We've talked about that. But if they weren't expecting it, right, and they received it, you've got an opportunity to surprise and delight your audience.
Yeah. And I like the aspect of, okay, doing something kind of out of left field that's just an added bonus where someone's not expecting it. I've purchased things in the past where they'll throw in a custom nice leather-bound notebook or a pen or something that's high-end, not just some little cheapy pen, but they'll do something like that where it's unexpected, and it's just kind of a nice value add that does add more to the experience. But also, if you're kind of with your business going, hey, well, what could I throw in that's going to catch them off guard every time? There's other ways of doing it where maybe you can rotate things. Like Scott's example with the testers, Sephora does that where you get a tester, but they have it on monthly rotation, I believe, where it's changing ever so often. So when you make your purchases, you can add in these testers based off of what you might enjoy, or based off of suggestions. And on another level, you have like Costco that actually they reorchestrate their store and their products so that when shoppers are, shopping and going through the store, they'll actually bump into different things. So it's different, again, the expectations and the assumptions we make as consumers, and then we're caught off guard by something that is either out of place or just, extraordinary because it's not part of the ordinary process.
Yeah. And it could even be something as simple and fun and engaging with the customer if your brand had a way of doing something. Well, let's say they cut at your point of purchase where maybe there's a die and they roll the die and that number represents a certain percentage off their purchase. Yeah. And it's almost like they're not expecting it. It's like, oh, and they end up rolling something. You got 30% off today. You're like, what? Off what they're about to buy. Like small, obviously that can be extremes, but there's ways that you can surprise the consumer, the customer, and that they're not expecting. And it could be very little effort on your end, but it can mean a lot. But it's just a stronger connection from that experience. Yeah, a stronger enjoyment from that transaction.
Especially when it connects with like the lifestyle of your shopper as well, or your consumer, because it's like you want to do something that's in line with them. And the dice that you said reminds me of when I was in Nashville. There's a hot chicken place, I think it's called Hattie's, and they had it where when you're ordering, the cashier will put up some cards and they're face down, and you just pick a card. And I think if you get an ace or something like that, your meal is then just free. And they would ring a bell and stuff like that. And like I went up and like, you're kind of, my brother was telling me about it. I was like, oh man, that could be kind of cool, like actually getting our meal paid for. And then I didn't get it, but but then we sit down, and a couple minutes go by while we're eating. That chicken's actually really good. It was really hot. But then you hear the bell go off and everyone's all celebrating. So it actually creates this whole, not just for the person buying, but it created an entire atmosphere where then it's like being in a casino where you hear someone start winning money and it's like, oh my gosh, like actually, and then it gives you hope to then go, hey, I might come back.
I'm going to go order more chicken and see if I can get it for free.
If I spend $1,000, you start doing the math.
You walk out a couple grand.
Card counting.
In fast food chicken or whatever.
But I think there's something just magical about that, right? You don't expect that. It's interesting. I wish In-N-Out would do that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. But even things like, we talked about, and I think it's leaned on of kind of programmable or planned surprise and delight or serendipity, right? The chance. But I mean, even like how Costco will rearrange their inventory on the floor to create, it seems like it's new, but if things are in a different spot, you start noticing more every aisle, rather than if everything's the same thing that you're not interested in, you pass by and go right for you want. But all of a sudden it's like, wait, maybe I'm interested in it because this wasn't here before. Yeah. Oh, where's the old stuff? Oh, it's down there, but maybe there's something new down next to it. So now and it encourages the consumer to want to meander more. Yeah. Even though they didn't really do much, maybe added a couple things and took some other thing, but by rearranging everything, it's like all brand
kind
new.
of that intrigue.
Yeah.
It's like when DVDs, remember when they'd have the big DVD bins and you start digging in and it's like $5 or whatever. Yeah. And then you might come across one and you're like, oh my gosh. And then you put it aside and then you're like, man, there might be something better. And you keep digging.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I think with the Costco example, it's like there is something there where it creates this intrigue of like, it's not only nice to have things mix up and you're not just going through the monotony of shopping. Because that's what you get when you go to a normal grocery store. Is like, okay, going down these aisles, next in line, it just feels so sterile in a lot of ways. But then Costco doing that and creating these treasure hunts and these exciting kind of ways you stumble across things. Yes, they've planned it and designed it that way, but it does create little moments of surprise and then a delight little kind of discovery. And that's why I like what Matt brought up in his TEDx was with serendipity. I think one of the main points that I like that he hit upon was that as humans, we do assign meaning to things. So I've even had it where, I might come across a sale or a good deal on something like at Costco. And then I think like, oh man, I'm so happy I went today. Like, I'm so happy I went shopping and I came across that deal. And then in my mind, I kind of start creating this narrative of the serendipity, the meaning of that, the value of me going, man, I scored. Like, just because I decided to go to the store today and I actually scored.
That's me at Goodwill. When I go through and I'm just I find like a score, like, oh, this is a great pea coat, and I'm like, what, $19, and barely worn, and you're like, if I'd been maybe 5 minutes later, that guy walking over there, he could have grabbed it, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it feels like you have an empowered destiny with, fate. Like this was
I think that's what even like TJ Maxx, you look at TJ Maxx in their sector is that they kill it compared to like Ross and other examples like that. But like TJ Maxx, I think does create that so well where when you go, I see people from all walks of life going to TJ Maxx or Home Goods or whatever. It's all the same company, but they are shopping in there and you get that same thrill of like, oh my gosh. And sometimes it is only one, there's only one of them. And
one size.
And you score.
That happens to be my size. And you feel like it was
There's a
meant
euphoria.
To be. Yeah.
And I think it does become addicting in that way. And, you think about people even doing garage sales. There's people who do that every weekend. They go out and they find something. Maybe they'll resell
Mark it up.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
But it's still getting the high of
like for me, like I, as a person, I love going to like swap meets, antique shows, garage sales, yard sales. There's something about finding a little something that you don't know what to expect, and it's like a little, I love those things. And so as a consumer, when I can somewhere experience little micro instances of that kind of joy that comes from exploring, or I don't know what to expect, but no matter what, it's going to be positive.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is we're talking about, you want to assure your audience of the things that they shouldn't have to be assured on. The quality of the accuracy and honesty in the transaction, right. the quality of the expected quality of the product or the quality of the service you're providing. There's certain things that they shouldn't have to, they expect and they should get. Now if you've been working on your brand and their expectations are even greater, right? Because now they know, wow, and their service is great. Prices, like as the more they get, that trust level increases and that expectation. And then when you can find ways to just spike that little bits here and there, it triggers almost a tighter adhesive for the audience to your brand that they're going to continue to want to bring you business and engage with your brand because they get so much more delight out of it.
Right. And in my head, it's almost like you have different layers to it where you have, okay, yes, you can do discounts. Everyone gets emails probably every day of 30% off this, 25% off this. And you can do that. Those are nice little bonuses where you can surprise someone and delight them if they choose to buy. Then you can do, giveaways, all that kind of stuff. And to me, those are almost like gimmicky kind of tactical things. They're lower level. I remember back in the day, as a kid, Gatorade did a big campaign where you would get the tops and flip it. When you open your Gatorade, you can win something. And I won like a Gatorade towel. I won these cool Michael Jordan holographic cards. I still have them all. I still have all of them. Actually, the Gatorade towel, I got the whole 49ers team to sign. I still have that in my garage.
Wow, dang.
It was actually a really cool thing. But and I remember that being like a highlight. I still think back on it of like, oh man, I feel so lucky. And thinking like, man, if I wouldn't have picked that Gatorade, if I wouldn't have purchased that, I would have never won that. And then it comes and goes. But like Scott's saying, it's more of those like sustainable attributes or kind of strategies for a brand to further bake it into just the way you do business.
Well, like, I mean, you got me going down memory lane, with sodas and Gatorades, right?
Yeah. Let's
go even farther. How about Cracker Jacks?
Oh yeah.
Here's a box of caramel, popcorn and peanuts in a box, but there was a surprise. There was a toy, a little surprise in it. Not like today either. I mean, back in the day, it was like there were like even little die-cast metal army guys, or it was like actual cool things, right? Now I think they're just stickers.
Paper,
But back then, they were one of the few brands that actually, they started doing that. And then cereal boxes the cereal companies started buying into that and they started including prizes. Oh, and guess what? McDonald's followed suit with the Happy Meal where they're out going, hey, you don't know which one you're going to get. Right, but you're going to get something, and it's one of four. Or even Legos sells these little mini figures, and they show like 8 possible ones on the front, and you don't know which one you're getting. It's a mystery bag, but there's something about it that is like just kind of fun,
the addiction,
and inventive.
I remember my grandma telling me it was either flour. Flour was either sold in pillowcases back in the day. And then she said is either flour, sugar, or cereal that would come with actually like a bowl. And so when you'd buy the product, you'd get a full like porcelain bowl.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so she's like her mom, so my great grandmother would have all these bowls from all these products they'd buy. But like to your point, you do see that where the surprise of it, you see it in even toys now. You have the LOL surprise dolls, the Doorables, all these things that I buy too much of because my daughters, but you do have these whole product lines that are focused on just the surprise. And
Yeah.
there's something I think to be said about human nature, what we love about that, but then also going, okay, there's obviously something there. How do we tie that into, your business, your brand, and how you market it?
Yeah. One thing to note with the doing these things, investing, whether it's random percent free meal or spending time, energy, and costs on the small business side of things or large business to do these surprising delights. Right? There's a cost. As people, we have to invest in relationships. If I don't spend any time with my closest friend, we're going to grow distance over time. If I don't invest any time and intentionality in my marriage, it's going to go stale and sour over time. So businesses have to realize they have to invest not only in the transaction of their business, right? Cost of goods, streamlining service, ways to effectively cut corners without cutting corners in your brand. But, there's fine ways to be more cost effective, and you always want to run a business more efficiently, right? So there's that, but that's focusing on the transaction. But to then position it so that you are investing in the relationship, that is where, yes, you have to invest a lot of time in the relationship with the brand, but you also have to spend money. You have to spend money on your brand, meaning your touch points, and also ways that you can surprise and delight. That's the investment in the relationship, because they are going to appreciate the effort, right? They're going to appreciate you wanting to engage with them and wanting to keep their business. It makes them, the audience and the customer, feel valued.
Yeah.
Just like when you call up that good friend you haven't talked to in a while. Say, man, I was thinking about you. Do you have time? I'd love to get caught up. Even if they say no, right now is not a good time.
Yeah.
Right. Guess what? That meant something. That was that was a deposit in their emotional bank and that was worth the investment.
Yeah. And it does, like we talked about before, it comes down to signaling. Just like when you're in a relationship and you signal that you're putting in effort about something, or thinking about someone's birthday and you do effort into that, or like Scott said, giving someone a call, you're signaling that you're thinking about them and you're sacrificing time, energy, resources into that relationship. And all of these are signaling things that we as humans, we notice that, and we take that into consideration. That's why people do billboards. Billboards aren't the most effective thing, but when we see it, we go, oh, that company must have money to be able to do a billboard. Okay, they must be successful, therefore I can trust them. So there's a lot of these signaling factors that go on. And what I love about even just focusing on surprise and delight, I think the true power does come from, it forces you to look at what's expected and then do the opposite of, okay, what's unexpected in this? What are the assumptions? What are the kind of bland things that, my specific industry does, or that all the businesses do? How do we approach this differently? How do we be distinct? And how do we add more value? And that to me, like we always say, it's like, if you want to be ordinary, just do what everyone else is doing. But to be extraordinary, to be a great brand, to actually excel in your marketing, you can't do the ordinary. Extraordinary can't come from ordinary inputs. And I think I like about surprise and delight is that it shifts the mindset, and it can be even cost effective. It could be as much as looking at your industry and going, man, when I go into our competition, into their storefront or whatever, the people don't remember my name. They don't ask me who I am. They don't ask me about anything like that, right? And so it could just be a matter of you training your staff and being, hey, try to remember people's names. Just like you had, and Scott brought it up in a recent episode about when you went into Verizon, and the guy remembered his name.
I went in the next day, and he had 3 other people working, and he immediately, I'll be right with you, Mr. Saunders. And I was like, what?
Unexpected.
What? And you brought up a good point. A lot of the surprise and delight can occur just from customer service, whether it's email. I mean, every time you have a transaction, no matter what, you have some degree of customer service you have to provide. And we even talked in one of the previous podcasts about just emotions, right? sometimes you have no control over what kind of emotional state your customer is in when they start to engage with your brand, but you can certainly have some responsibility for how you respond to it.
Yeah.
And that are ways that you can surprise and delight. In even small ways like that can have meaning. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to dip into the register to invest. It could just be awareness, training, mentality, and the right filter. Always checking to make sure everything you do and say it's on point with your brand.
Yeah, like being self-aware in a lot of ways, and then going, okay, how do we be distinct? What is our approach to this to keep adding value and help that perception of the business, of the experience, all those things just come together and really work in harmony.
Yeah. So I think, just as moving forward with your brand, find ways to do it that are relevant to your audience. In other words, if you decide, I'm going to make stickers and put them in stickers, but none of your audience would really actually use stickers, right? Whereas if you were doing it to my 20-year-old son who puts stickers on every one of his, his Stanley Cups or whatever, right? Yeah. All over the place, their laptop, and they get into stickers might work for the audience, but just having your, brand name on a sticker and thinking, I'm going to put there's investment, not necessarily.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you again for tuning in for another episode of Brandy. We'll see you on our next round. Cheers.
Cheers.